Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for frame rate is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Frame Rate is brought to you by Netflix. Watch thousands of TV episodes and movies streamed to your PC, Mac, or TV instantly. Plus, get DVDs by mail in about a business day. For your free 30-day trial, go to netflix.com/twit. And by Hover.com. Hover is domain name registration and management that's simple. For Hover's transfer concierge service, free for our audience, go to hover.com/frame.
What is FriendFace? FriendFace is a great new site for meeting people. How does it work? FriendFace works along the same principle as a cold or a terrible plague. But it's not disgusting germs that FriendFace spreads, it's friendship. Each FriendFace page is like a petri dish filled with friendship germs. When you stick your face into the dish, you may come away with millions of other people attached to your face. That's right, it's basically a diseased face of friendship. Just sign up with FriendFace by giving us all of your personal information. And we'll provide a web page where you can meet new friends, catch up with old ones, and maybe find that special someone. Don't think about germs now. That analogy's over. Now it's just love and companionship, and everything's fine. We own everything we put on FriendFace. It says so in the terms and agreements. But don't worry about that. We won't use it to do anything bad, we promise. Just think about love and companionship, and everything's fine. FriendFace! FriendFace! FriendFace!
It's FriendFace. Welcome to Frame Rate, episode 22. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Brian Brushwood.
That FriendFace clip is hilarious. Although it's from the It Crowd. I saw it in the actual show when it first came out.
In the actual wait, is it the It Crowd? I thought it was the IT Crowd.
You know, it's either. In fact, when the show first launched, they asked the creator, "Is it It Crowd or IT Crowd?" And he's like, "Well, it's kind of a takeoff of the It, like in the '60s, like an It girl." He's like, "So I call it It Crowd, but it plays off of IT." And then after a couple of years, they kept asking him this question. He's like, "You know what? It's IT Crowd. It's fine. Everybody calls it IT Crowd. You can call it IT Crowd. I don't really care anymore." So.
That's the way George R.R. Martin was with the pronunciation of the names of all the characters. Like, he went on record saying, because audiobooks pronounce them differently, and he's like, "Well, what's the proper pronunciation of Daenerys?" He's like, "You know what? I just write the words. It's up to you."
You know, that's funny. Leo and I were talking about that earlier because the audiobooks pronounce them the same way as they're being pronounced on HBO's show, and he's like, "Oh, so they must have checked with George R.R. Martin to make sure they got them right." And I was like, "Actually, I've heard that he doesn't." Clarify those things.
Well, and in fact, actually, I don't know if you know this, but the guy who reads most of the books, Roy Dotrice, a fantastic actor, he's actually has a part in the Game of Thrones. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. Which part does he play?
Grand Maester Pycelle, I think.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I didn't put that together. I read the Game of Thrones on Kindle. I didn't listen to the audiobook. So.
Oh my goodness, he is amazing. He is as good as Frank Muller is, and that's praise I don't give out very often. Yeah. So what are we up to today, buddy?
Well, we've got a guest joining us, Jay Sperling Reich from Showbiz Sandbox, also a Hollywood technology consultant. Good to have you on the show, Sperling.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming along. I've had you on The Real Deal. You've been on Tech News Today. I think you've even been on Forecast. But this is a show that actually talks about what you do for a living.
Yeah, I noticed that, actually. I was surprised this wasn't the first show you had me as a guest on. I'm sorry?
I don't know about Tom, but I personally am very uncomfortable having somebody who actually knows what they're talking about on the show. We'll do our best to deal with it, but I'm a little bit nervous.
But, you always talk so professionally about everything, every subject, Brian. I'm actually amazed. And every time every Monday when we record Showbiz Sandbox, I think, God, how could I be more like Brian Brushwood as we move forward into...
And you grab a fistful of Crisco and you put your hair up and you pretend to talk like you know something, right?
Yeah, well, just the talking about knowing something part, not necessarily the hair part.
All right.
He puts his hair up and then he says, "Okay, these two quarters can't touch each other. How are you going to move them from here to underneath that beer glass?"
Yes.
Well, no, I mean, every subject you talk like you've just studied it for the last 5 years, and here is the truth and all of the knowledge you need about this particular subject, and it's very erudite and it sounds quite good.
Let's put it to the test with our first big story.
This just in, the big story.
All right, Brian?
Yes,
the
sir.
erudite.
Erudite.
Go.
I'm in the zone.
No. So according to entertainment website The Wrap, and All Things D's Paul Kafka also says his sources confirm this. YouTube has locked up some studio deals to get itself into the online movie rental game. Sony, Warner, and Universal, as well as some indies like Lionsgate, Kino Lorber, and a few others, will allow their movies to be streamed on YouTube for a rental fee of about $4. And this will add to the already available indie movies that are available at youtube.com/movies. They've had a rental system for a while, but this would give it some big catalog and put it up right there next to iTunes Rentals and Vudu Rentals and these other systems that rent movies piece by piece. I know Facebook's starting the same thing. We've talked about that. So what do you think, Brian? Is this something people are going to take advantage of? Are people going to watch movies and pay $4 to watch a movie on YouTube?
You know what? As far as, and you know me, it's like from a branding perspective, what you want to do is you want to find your core strength and you want to stick to it. But the problem is YouTube is so massive. I don't think they're even going to want to be known for movie rentals. But I think there's such a video destination that for them it's like, oh, is that $100 million laying on the ground? I guess I'll pick it up. You know, it's I don't think they'll ever supplant Netflix or even Hulu or possibly even Facebook. But I mean, damned if they're not going to make a decent chunk of change off of this if they're able to make a partnership. Now, meanwhile, this is still good news for new media consumption of old Hollywood content, regardless, because even if it's still a step in the right direction. Even if this isn't going to be a huge moneymaker, YouTube will continue to mean in the public minds cats on pianos. But while they're there, somebody will be like, oh, I guess it is available here.
Yeah, Sperling, what do you think? I mean, they are getting into a business that's pretty populated.
Yeah, it depends on how they actually decide to promote it, because certainly, YouTube is known for, well, cats on pianos and, your odd home videos.
I believe hamsters are more common on pianos.
Yeah, or dogs drinking from toilets. There's that. And then wasn't that guy who just got arrested over the weekend for the rape video? Or that sounds wrong, but
you're talking about the bed intruder,
bed intruder. Yes, thank you,
Dobson. Yeah.
Yes, Andre Dotson. Yeah, I mean, it's known for that. So it depends on how they're going to try and get people to actually watch the rented movies on their.
Jason beat me to it. I was loading up a dog versus a duck clip, but then instead we got hamster on a piano.
Yeah, I had to go with hamster.
What is that hamster eating?
Eating popcorn on the piano. That's what it does. Sorry to totally destroy your point
okay.
there.
This is the YouTube effect. This is what happens.
That's right.
Discourse comes to a stop the moment you see a hamster on the piano.
This is actually Google's genius, right? They have created a hive mind so powerful that if you start to criticize them, they will just cause events to lead you to be distracted by a hamster on a piano and forget your point.
That's how their production meetings go. When they have advertisers, when they're negotiating CPMs, they're like, "Well, we really think our content is worth." Is that a hamster on a piano?
That's right, sir. Just sign here.
But, independent filmmakers actually kind of live and die by YouTube and iTunes. So, they've actually done quite well by posting their films on YouTube and renting them through YouTube. Sundance Film Festival has done it for 2 years in a row, and it's been quite successful for them. So it really depends. But then again, when Sundance did it, there was a lot of promotion, and they really put it up front. It really depends on how YouTube structures their promotion and how they structure the films within their site, because if it's just buried, nobody's going to rent these movies.
And you know what? This also comes on the heels of YouTube's getting to a lot of things that strike me as being very un-YouTubey. Not only are they striking these deals for movie rentals, but they're also doing their live streaming stuff, which is in a space that's already dominated by Ustream and Justin and Quick. And so I don't know. I don't know if this is them maturing into a larger space or trying to define themselves as a larger brand, or a case where it's just like, well, what do online companies do? They just keep growing. And so maybe that's all their game plan is. I'd be really curious to know what their end strategy is for all of this.
You know, it seems like catch up to me. We can decide whether YouTube should be in this space or not, but 2-3 years ago, we were all saying, why isn't YouTube in this space? Why aren't they doing live streaming video? Why aren't they doing movie rentals for major studios? Part of the reason they weren't is because of copyright concerns, because they were too busy defending themselves against Viacom and others and trying to prove that they weren't just a haven for piracy. Now that they've feel that they've got that well in hand, I believe that they're starting to say, okay, we can actually make these deals. Now, we're not going to make a deal with Viacom. Viacom and Disney are named as not being part of this, but we can convince other big industries to play ball with us, and hopefully Viacom will come around eventually, at least once we're out of court with them. I think that's what's going on. We should point out, YouTube has not said anything about this other than we've rented movies for a long time. We continue to add movies all the time to increase our selection, and we don't comment on rumors and speculation.
Which they always say. So, I mean, but, you know, it's kind of hard to ask the bank for a loan when they think you're robbing them out the back door. So you're right. I think that...
Look, we're not robbing you. There is somebody who came in our car who's robbing you. We don't put locks on the doors. It's not our fault. It's a very large car. We can't be required to look at the doors all the time to see if a robber happened to jump in while we're on the way to the bank. But we're going to start scanning the doors. So hopefully you can give us a loan now.
Now, first of all, I think you're 100% right on the motivation for why they took so long in order to push into movie rental. Is this a sign that their privacy stigma is behind them now, you think? I said privacy, I meant piracy.
It's definitely not behind them, but certainly they have been held up as the poster child for how to deal with copyright infringement on a DMCA level, when people are uploading content, user-generated content supposedly, into a website or onto a website. Everybody goes to YouTube and says, look at what YouTube is doing. They're able to identify and then monetize how copyrighted content is shown on their website. But really, when you think about it, isn't YouTube a worldwide site? It can be viewed all over the world, right?
Yes. Yeah, although I think...
I mean, I'm asking a softball question.
I think they do geolocate, though, right? So that if you're outside of the U.S., you can't watch the particular rentals they have licensed there?
And there's the rub, is that right now the way films are licensed is by territory. So this is very good for the United States, but it means nothing for anybody outside the United States until Google can actually, or YouTube, who are, they are technically separate companies, until YouTube can show up and start getting licenses for all of the other territories like the UK and Europe.
One more thing on YouTube and its piracy stigma. Did you guys see the YouTube copyright school video that came out with the Happy Tree Friends? Did you see that?
Yeah. We talked about it on Tech News Today.
Okay, so I watched that thing and I left just enraged. Like not only was it so terribly not helpful, but if anything, it's such a damning indictment of our current copyright setup that it makes me wonder if at some level they weren't intentionally almost trying to say how ridiculous our current copyright setup is. And in fact, you'll notice if you pan down, they have disabled comments on the video. And first of all, and it's frustrating because the guy keeps trying to do something, and even a remix or even taping a live performance of all that, everything is just, nope, that's piracy as well, and everything's piracy. And why don't you just make your own amazing hit out of nowhere? But if you look at it, it's been viewed 267,000 times, and it has 1,100 likes and 6,000 dislikes. So I think that certainly the YouTube audience is chiming in on how they feel about, if not the video itself, then the state of copyright and the way YouTube is handling it.
Yeah, I think the only thing the video itself does really wrong is it gives short shrift to fair use. It doesn't actually explain fair use very well. It does it very quickly and very dismissively, which is essentially like, yeah, there's this thing called fair use, but don't pay attention to it because it's really complicated, and you might as well ask a lawyer first before you do anything anyway. And it's better to just not do anything at all. Okay, next topic.
Yeah, well, and that's the part. Like, if they're almost trying to be tongue in cheek about how stupid the law is, then I can see that. But I think you're right. It most likely is a total chicken-ass way of. I can't say chicken-ass. It's a totally.
I believe you meant chicken ass. way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you asked why YouTube is finally doing this. I have a feeling it's because Robert Kinkle just joined them, and he's I think they're vice president of TV and film. And guess where he comes from? He comes from Netflix, and he was the guy that got all of their streaming rights before he left and then joined YouTube. And he's been there, I think, now for about 5 or 6 months, and now all of a sudden they have streaming rights or not streaming rights, rental rights.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think for the studios, they're looking for anything that's going to be transactional over subscription, because subscription, the cost of the good being sold turns into pennies rather than a DVD, which, let's face it, you buy a DVD, you watch it twice, it costs about $10 per viewing. Whereas when you're streaming it, you're only getting a few cents on the license for that film.
Well, there is going to have to be a new model for this stuff eventually. Just taking the old stuff and trying to figure out streaming rights is going to go. We've talked about this before. It's going to have to go away. They're going to have new windowing systems. And we have another big story that deals with what people think the next steps are going to be.
Stop everything. It's another big story.
This story comes from Mike Henry over at adage.com. Do you think they thought about that? Because it's ad age, right? But when you read the URL, the old adage, that adage has a really odd URL. Anyway, Mike Henry writes about what's called multi-platform production, or MPP. This sounds like a buzzword in the making, Sperling. Is this something that's already kicking around Hollywood?
Yes and no. I mean, I think most people will throw it in just to make it look as if they know what they're talking about. But for the most part, it's really among a select group of people and executives who are working in that field.
But it seems like the idea behind MPP, you know me, is to create content that works in various platforms rather than having this, like, we publish a show once and then push it to all the platforms. It's more the idea of mobisodes. So when we're on a mobile device, we have content that's tailored to that mobile device and works well in that situation, and that drives people to want to watch the full episodes maybe on a larger television kind of situation. Is that summary pretty much what most people mean when they use this phrase?
I think they're trying to create specific content for specific devices. So there's that whole idea of the second screen, that you have your television in front of you, but then you have your iPad sitting on your lap, which is your second screen. How can you make the two interact? And, I'm not sure that most of the networks really, or even the studios, know how to make that work yet, or even are familiar enough with the technology to make it work.
So Henry says in his Ad Age article here that producers that succeed with the MPP approach start with great characters and stories, consider not just age, gender, or psychographic sections of their audience, but where and how the audience is going to consume the content, which means, are they on a phone, are they on a tablet, are they on their couch, do they have their tablet while they're on the couch watching TV? That's what Sperling's talking about here. You carefully develop production strategies and cycles to deliver assets that can be packaged in different ways for various platforms, audiences, and markets. Not sure exactly what that means, but I think it means that, depending on what device you're using, you get different options of what you can see. You consider and explore international markets from project inception. This is in order to get like the most out of your dollar that you're spending, so that you can push it into the internet, which is a worldwide market, and place a high value on the social networks attached to talent with whom they work. So your stars should be out tweeting about this. Do I have that right? This is kind of gobbledygook to me.
Yeah, well, I think it's gobbledygook to a lot of people, frankly.
Out of all, I will say this article takes the record out of everything we've covered on frame rate. This is the first article you've put in the show prep where I was just like, I don't even know what this guy is saying. I don't understand a single word of this. I understand that there's a lot of buzzwords being used, and this sounds like the kind of thing that's going to sound good in a boardroom, but ultimately will result in somehow, some special crossover episode where you have to hold your iPad to watch the Bayer aspirin ad at the right moment. I mean, all of these buzzwords, it makes no sense to me. It's not English.
Yeah, there's more buzzwords in this particular article than in most of the articles I've ever read.
What I liked, there's two reasons why I wanted to include this in the show, though. One is that it's like a buzzword index, which we need to kind of, to be able to speak the language to the other side, we should know kind of what they're talking about. And to me, it seems like, if I'm reading this right, it's an indication that production companies are starting to come around in a strange, rather circuitous route to the idea of creating content for the internet. And they're couching it in all of these phrases that keep it from sounding scary and make people feel comfortable with it, and using examples like Michael Eisner's Vuguru has evolved a successful MPP strategy that produces modular episodic content, which translates well from browser to phone to app to VOD. Okay,
all right,
I think I could translate that part to mean they created something that works on a bunch of platforms. But the second sentence is the important thing. As a result, they've scored big international VOD deals with Rogers in Canada and Sony Pictures in Latin America, as well as a deal to produce new multi-platform content for AOL. So it's saying, here's some stuff that sounds like taking what you're doing and just kind of creating a new way of distributing it, and then you'll get all this money from all of these internet companies. And doesn't that sound wonderful?
Okay, yeah, it worked really great for YouTube, didn't it? I mean, they've been making money hand over fist since the day they launched. So,
but they don't have a multi-platform production strategy.
Okay, well, that might be part of the problem.
On the off chance that there's one studio exec out there listening to our little show, look, it's very simple. If you want to take advantage of the internet, because that's all this buzzwords and gobbledygook and social media BS, this is all a chance to say there's gold in them there internets, and they don't know how they formulate these idiotic strategies, and they all end up being these, we'll create mobisodes and people watch them all tiny and stuff. Don't patronize us by taking your TV content and chopping it down and cutting the nuts off of it and giving it to us in pieces. That's not what the internet wants. What it wants is more access. If you want to cash in on the internet, yes, you do have your actors tweet. You have your directors tweet. You have behind the scenes extra features that come out just on the internet. You give more access behind the scenes. People in the internet age don't accept this force-fed single-channel distribution anymore. You've got to give behind the scenes and let people feel like they have ownership, not only in how the story was created, not only what the story is, but how the story was written, and possibly even an ownership or certainly a voice in how the story progresses. That is how you motivate the internet. That's how you get us on your side, not by cutting out special 30 seconds movisodes or whatever other crap they put in here.
Well, I think this is more than that. I mean, the other example he gives is Outrigger Media. They do No Reservations with Anthony Bourdain, which is fantastic. They're creating a premium video app web series featuring David Chang, who's the chef of the Momofuku restaurant chain, along with people like Bourdain and Wiley Dufresne, exploring food history, science, cooking, and culture while eating a bowl of ramen. That actually sounds pretty awesome. Getting some big brains in cooking, talking about the history of food, the science of food, people who know what they're talking about, and a good device like, you know what? They're eating a bowl of ramen and they're chatting. I love this idea. And they're pushing it out as an app. They're distributing it directly to the web. So if I were to pull something positive out of this that belies the fact that maybe this is just a bunch of buzzwords comforting people who don't get it, I think it's the fact that buried amongst here are signs that people are taking the web and apps seriously as a distribution mechanism and saying, you know what, we need to make content for that.
But I think they're doing it in a way that's more like the DVD extras were to movies. So it's not necessarily the show itself, it's just a little extra, which, if done properly, I mean, buzzwords aside, if this was done properly, you could see a show like CSI or Bones. They could actually do something very inventive with both interacting between the television series and the episode you're watching and your phone or your iPad as you walk around. You could actually help solve the mystery. And it would have to be episodic on the series as well. I mean, you could actually become a part of the storytelling.
Now, I'll tell you what else. For example, a lot of the content that right now shows up that you can only get by purchasing the DVDs and stuff, the little featurettes, the extra stuff that was cut. For example, when we talked about the leaked footage of what was on the Lost DVD set, where it showed the shutting down of the Dharma Initiative, that kind of stuff is born for the internet. And to put it, to lock it away and say you got to spend $60 for content you already enjoyed once in order to get this little snippet, again, that's old thinking. And what they ought to be doing is using these as promotional tools in order to drive more interest in people going to Netflix and watching the whole series in the back catalog.
I think this is, I think my long-term belief is that we have to have content made for the web that is at the quality of content made for television. And until that happens, it's going to be this sort of mindset that, well, the web is for the little throwaway stuff or the lockaway stuff, and TV is for the real stuff. And what I see here are evidence of a few production companies saying, let's actually make some really quality stuff for the web. And it's just the very tip of the iceberg, for sure. But that iceberg is coming, and it's going to sink the Titanic that is the old way of thinking.
But have you seen the way... Have you seen what Peter Jackson is doing for The Hobbit? I mean, he's doing exactly what you're saying, Brian.
Yes. And in fact, that's one of our stories coming up, actually. We're talking about a couple of things that came out on Facebook and over tweets. And I agree with you 100%, Tom. And maybe it's just that I'm allergic to that idiotic TV talk that they do. And you came from TV, Tom, so maybe you speak that language better than I. Every time I hear it, it just makes no sense to me. If that is the message in this article, then fantastic, great. Then if they do get the internet, then so much the better.
VPVH, quarter hours, target marketing. Yeah.
Stop!
I got you, jargon.
Stop!
All right, let's move on to yet another big story.
Tuck in your bootstraps. It's yet another big story.
Netflix had its earnings call. Lots of interesting stuff came out. 1 in 8 Americans subscribe to Netflix. That's more subscribers, or at least pretty close to the amount of subscribers who subscribe to Comcast for their cable television. Netflix sales jumped 46%. And Reed Hastings even said that they're thinking about maybe throwing a little more money behind some original programming, like that House of Cards thing that they're doing. They want to try it a couple more times.
I knew the House of Cards thing was a big deal. I did not realize that they were looking at a budget of upwards of $100 million for that thing. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, this is again another example of taking real good production and putting it directly on the internet.
Yeah, I like the way though that during the I guess it's a press conference or earnings call, they said that in the future they hope to do a few more lower budgeted original programming efforts. And I mean, it's not hard to do $100 million. Anything under $100 million is lower budgeted. Well, then you're making some pretty good content.
Well, exactly. Like, to me, when I heard lower budgeted, in my mind, when you're coming down from $100 million, I was like, oh, so it'll only be in the range of Breaking Bad and Mad Men. Well, I guess I could live with that kind of production, especially when they have the freedom to create the kind of content that you have no one to answer to. You have no advertisers to answer to. When you break free of that model, I'm so fascinated to see what kind of content that you never would have gotten on cable television comes out of the work that Netflix is putting into this.
Well, wouldn't that be like what HBO and Cinemax and Showtime are doing? I mean, they don't have any sponsors.
Absolutely.
They don't have to worry about language or nudity. And look at what you got. You've got The Sopranos, you got Sex and the City, and is it Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Game of
Thrones.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. With
Game of Thrones.
The blood and the nudity and the kings. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Game of Thrones when we get to what we're watching, because I know we're both watching.
Or as we like to call it, This Week in Swords and Nipples.
Yes. That's our new spinoff podcast from Sword and Laser. The other thing Reed Hastings said that was interesting in this earnings call is he copped to a criticism that I believe Time Warner's exec had made, saying, yeah, Netflix, yeah, we know that business model. It's called reruns. It's been around forever. It's not a new thing. And Reed Hastings like, yeah, that's exactly right. That's what Netflix is. We are reruns. We are the previous seasons of television. We're that syndication model in the new world, and people hopefully will realize that if you license us your old seasons, you're building interest for your new seasons. And he even went so far as to say, I hope HBO will start talking to us. I hope Showtime will start giving us reruns so that we can build people. We don't think we're competition for cable. We think we're supplementary to cable, and we'll actually drive people to want to subscribe to cable to get the new seasons of the shows that we have on Netflix.
HBO would beg to differ because they were the ones bidding against Netflix for House of Cards. So that's the reason that it cost $100 million, was because between HBO and Netflix and Showtime, the bidding went all the way up to $100 million. That's around the same time that HBO and Showtime started to pull back their content from Netflix. So I don't necessarily know that they're complementary, at least not in the eyes of HBO.
And Hastings addressed that too. He said that the whole thing with House of Cards was, quote, driven by desire to test a new licensing model using a small portion of our content budget. And he tried to say it's not a shift in strategy towards original programming. He says Netflix just wants to test this out and see how it works. Don't take it seriously, HBO. Please come back.
Do you remember when Netflix got into original programming the first time? They had a movie distribution or a film distribution company called, what was it called? Red Envelope, I believe is what it was called. And they tried it out for about a year and a half and then immediately pulled back and nixed the project because the studios were complaining that the films that they were releasing into movie theaters were competing with the very films that the studios were trying to release. And since Netflix relied on the studios for all of their content, they basically said, we won't be doing original content, at least not theatrical original content. Yeah, I guess television content, I suppose, is different.
I think what they could get away with, maybe, and you tell me if this is right, Sperling, Netflix could produce something like a House of Cards and actually give it to HBO.
Yes, absolutely.
And say, you run this first, but we retain the right to air the reruns. So you know they do this with they do it with House of Cards the way we think they're going to do it, where the new episodes run on Netflix. But once they've figured it out, they say, okay, we're going to do more of these, but all we're doing is going to put the money up because we know we can make that money back on the back end. But we want to have a relationship with you, Showtime. We want to have a relationship with you, HBO. So let's have you take the first run as long as we get the second run of not only this, but maybe some of your other shows.
Well, think about it. That's the way 2.5 Men is done. Warner Brothers produces it, and who is it? CBS airs it, and CBS pays Warner Brothers a fee to purchase the production each episode. So they absolutely could do the exact same thing. There's no difference between Warner Brothers, which is a studio, and Netflix, which in this case is acting like a production company, much the way Warner Brothers does with 2.5 Men.
Brian, what do you think? Is that going to happen? Or are we going to see Netflix get into the production house business on the back end?
I'll tell you what, you sort of poked me in an interesting way.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
it was unintentional.
Awkward.
And unfortunately, I don't know nearly enough about the specifics when it comes to the money side of things. But I'm wondering, what is the value? Like, let's say they do create the entire content. They spend $100 million. They get the whole series created. Would it be worth it? Like, would Netflix get more viewers for their content if they gave it away for free to HBO and said, you can have this for free. All we ask is that you promote the hell out of it. And then first runs go on HBO. Like, would more people end up watching it with it? I mean, would it be crazy if there was more money in reruns than there was in the initial run for this kind of thing?
Well, think about it. Isn't that exactly what the movie industry is all about? Theatrical distribution is all about trying to break even on your production costs, not even your distribution costs, but your production costs, so that you can then turn around and through DVDs and film licensing to television and premium cable and video on demand, you can actually begin to make your profit and your money back through the ancillary markets rather than the primary market, which is all really just a big marketing campaign for the DVD.
That's amazing. That would be amazing if that's how it went. And I don't know. Who knows? Maybe that's exactly how it will go. But, I mean, do you think without partnering up, will Netflix be able to get the eyeballs that you know, is it worth it just to give the content away to an HBO or a Showtime for the promotion?
Well, that's the other thing is Netflix doesn't care about eyeballs the same way HBO doesn't care about eyeballs. In other words, we want subscriptions. So we don't. To a certain extent, HBO pays attention to ratings because if stuff is not being watched, that means they don't have as compelling of an offering. But they don't worry about eyeballs specifically. They worry about conversions to subscriptions. And as long as those reruns actually get people to come and subscribe to Netflix because they know they're going to have this huge back catalog, and that's where the key is to get other properties from the partners that you give your show to, then Netflix wins.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a few years back, this was called the long tail, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that buzzword is out of vogue. Now it's MPP.
But, you know, Brian, they wouldn't have to give away the show. They could actually turn around and sell it to HBO at a small profit. And then as long as they get the back-end licensing deal for streaming.
That's awesome. Well, I'll be interested to see how it turns out.
All right, let's move on to what is probably not such a big story since it's our fourth one, but still we have another sort of big story.
You
could just do the yet another big
It's the cat's pajamas.
Boom.
It's probably not such a big story since
I guess
it's
we should just do the yet another big story in those situations.
Or we should have another one created that's yet another big story.
We need another one called Probably Not Such a Big Story since it's our fourth big story.
But I want Bill Meeks to do that same voice. Like, in your bootstraps and slap a cat's pajamas, it's probably not such a big story since it's our fourth big story.
There we go. That's what
And if I know Bill Meeks, he's making it right now.
And thank you in advance.
Microsoft's Xbox to have streaming service. Now they already do this with who? With Uverse, where you can hook up your Xbox 360 as a receiver for AT&T Uverse. But reportedly, Microsoft is in talks with major TV networks about having Xbox Live stream TV channels in the United States, so that Xbox 360s would become their own cable service. You wouldn't be partnered with a Comcast or a Uverse.
Now, this sounds stupid and redundant if you already have cable, but this is we talked last week about I made the case that convenience always trumps fidelity. I kid you not. If my kids are watching Netflix on the Xbox 360, I have a Harmony One remote. All I need to do is press one button, but holding it for like 10 seconds straight while it changes everything over to the cable box is just enough of an inconvenience that I would probably stream Cartoon Network on the same device rather than press the one stupid button to switch over to actually going to Cartoon Network. This sounds kind of idiotic, but I think there's actually big potential in this.
It's basically turning the Xbox into an IPTV cable set-top box. That's what they're doing. And there are manufacturers out there, and when you go to NAB or IBC in the fall, you'll see these set-top boxes that all they are, you connect it to the internet, and it's a cable box, but without cable. The cable is the Ethernet cord.
So this isn't Microsoft becoming an MSO. They're not delivering the service. They're just receiving the service from wherever you still have to subscribe to cable. In other words, for this to work.
You still have to subscribe to internet, not necessarily cable.
Okay.
So as long as you have an internet connection, yeah.
So you don't so I can dump my Comcast subscription and use Xbox if this came about.
Yes, the difference is that Comcast has, they're much bigger when it comes to being an MSO, and they have a lot more clout in terms of getting the right channels or the channels that you would prefer to watch. Whereas, Microsoft, though big in technology and big in software, may not have as much power to try and get all of the networks. So you might get ESPN, but you won't get the Fox Sports Network, or you won't get ESPN 2 and 3 and ESPN Espanol, which, Tom, I know you like to watch every now and again.
See. Baseball. Venezuelan League, man. It's during the winter. All the winter leagues are on there. Anyway, also a companion story from CNN talks about using the Kinect to control your video on the Xbox 360 so that when you want to change the channel, Brian, you wouldn't have to pick up anything. You just hold up your hand and go, let's go to the next channel.
You know what? That sounds great in theory, but in the choice between pressing one button and waiting versus Xbox. Change channel. Cartoon Network.
Hey, get out of my way. I'm trying to change the channel.
Exactly.
Hold on.
Ollie, get out of here. Come on, quit messing with it.
Sawyer, down.
Xbox.
Down. I'm trying to change the channel.
Change channel. I don't think
Could you imagine how fat people will get? Not lifting the remote control.
No,
I mean, how lazy do you have to be to not?
The Kinect will actually burn calories because you'll be. Why won't you change?
That's true.
Channel this time.
The one thing I very, very strongly disagree with, in this particular article from CNN, it makes fun of the idea of a QWERTY keyboard in the living room. To be honest, I think it's only weird because most people haven't done that. Most of the geeks I know already have some kind of wireless keyboard or computer in their living room, and again, it's so precise. You can find anything from a YouTube video on forward, and the voice recognition is not there yet, and certainly the motion controls aren't where they need to be yet. I think we're a ways off from the Kinect replacing a physical remote control anytime soon, and I am very pro QWERTY keyboard, especially on the Boxy solution, where you have a very simple Apple-style remote on one side, you flip it over, and it's a QWERTY keyboard on the back.
No, that's brilliant. Good job, Boxy. Also, the tireless Ayaz Akhtar, one of my co-hosts on Tech News Today, just sent me this link in the chat room. Hulu Plus will be available on Xbox April 29th. the day of the royal wedding. It's a gift for William and Kate, and we all get it.
Except they're in the UK and they don't get Hulu.
I know.
So,
but, you know, they travel. They can have a sling box with a long infrared Kate repeater. Would that work? If you just sling, the latency would be crap, though. You'd never be able to play a game, but you'd be able to watch Hulu Plus that way.
Yeah, it's good enough.
Anyway, this according to a legit-looking scan of the June issue of OXM, as reported on Joystick. So thanks, IS, for passing that along. All right, it is time now for us to thank our sponsor, Netflix. They bring you. We've covered them all the time on this show, but they bring movies directly to your home. That saves you time, money, and hassle, and you can instantly watch thousands of TV episodes and movies streamed directly to your PC or Mac, or streamed to your television. You got one of these game consoles. You got an Xbox. You got a PS3. You got a Wii. You can stream Netflix to your television using them. Even with the PlayStation Network outage, Jason was able to get Netflix working fine.
It's true. Watched the movie this weekend.
Plus, you can get DVDs by mail in about a business day. This weekend, I checked out Salt by Angelina Jolie, and I swear, I believe that I liked the movie because it was a last-minute decision by my wife to like, hey, you want to watch Salt? It's on Netflix streaming. Like, yeah, I'll watch it. If I get bored, I'll just get up and leave. No cost, right? And I ended up enjoying it. I think if I'd gone to the theater and paid, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much.
You know, that's one of the things about Netflix is that I keep being surprised at the quality of movies that are on the instant streaming service. And of course, the catalog is always rotating, so stuff, will come in and go out. But it's amazing to me how many of the big blockbusters from last year are already available on Netflix. Netflix is in every way in the hearts and minds of most youngsters, completely replaced HBO. When you were growing up, wasn't it like magic, like, oh, good, Return of the Jedi's come out on HBO. I can watch it 85 billion times till I know it backwards and forwards. And now we've had that with Netflix. I'm watching it with my kids. I love the instant streaming feature. And more importantly, I love the way Netflix is doubling down on their efforts to bring more content. Again, any device. You forgot to mention the iPad. You can watch it, and even your iPhone. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure I was watching something over a 3G connection the other day. I don't know if that was because I have a jailbroken iPhone or not.
Yeah, I don't know either, but it is easy to watch Netflix on almost any connected device. Check them out. You get a free trial membership if you're not a Netflix subscriber, and you can express your satisfaction with TWIT programming by trying the free trial membership at netflix.com/twit. We thank Netflix for their support of Frame Rate. Time now for Film Val. Sperling, this is the part of the show where we talk about film news and movies we've watched and have an entirely too long and dramatic intro to the segment.
Think of it as a little holiday somebody could take in the middle of Frame Rate. It's like you go on a 10-second holiday. Yeah. You can picture you're looking at Fantasy Island or any of the other fabulous vistas that you remember from the early days of film.
Need to go to the bathroom? You can just do that. Sperling actually just headed off to the bathroom. We're calling him back.
Somebody in the chat room has confirmed that that Netflix does work fine over the 3G. So it's not just the fact that I have a jailbroken iPhone.
All right. Good news for our fans of The Hobbit. Ian Holm will be back. There's no other information but MTV Movies blogs saying that Peter Jackson took to his Facebook page to clarify that the voice we heard at the end of his recent video blog was, in fact, Martin Freeman, not Holm. That being said, Jackson dropped a bomb by stating that Ian will be returning as the older Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit.
Was there any doubt about this? This is one of those things where it just made so much sense. I totally assumed. I mean, only if somebody slept with his girlfriend could I imagine him not coming back with the same role. It would be such a fit.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. But this is the first time Peter Jackson has weighed in on it. So I don't know why MTV calling it a bombshell. It's not that surprising, but it is news that Peter Jackson said, oh, yeah, that's for sure. We're definitely having Ian Holm back, which is good news. Also, let's see. Looks like they'll have to reshoot some scenes from The Hobbit. Peter Jackson also on Facebook, and this is what Sperling was talking about earlier. He is crazy good at using these social networks right now to keep in touch with fans. Said he's sad to report that Rob Kaczynski, who was cast in the role of Fili, one of the dwarves, is having to leave The Hobbit and return home for personal reasons. They said they won't have to shoot that much over again. They hadn't really got to the shootings, the scenes that he was key to. So it won't set them back in their production line that much. But they are sad to see him go.
Is he a name? Was I supposed to recognize the name of that actor?
Rob Kaczynski. You know what? I don't know if you're supposed to recognize his name or not. But he was playing a key dwarf character.
Is he a dwarf or a hobbit?
No, wait. Was he? I thought he was a dwarf.
Oh, okay. Well, you said a dwarf. Yeah, I just want to make sure. I don't recognize the face, but still, any kind of setback. Obviously,
didn't you see EastEnders?
No, I did not.
Or Cowboys?
I unfortunately missed that one as well.
Yeah, I don't know if he's somebody I'm supposed to know or not. But
his brother Ted Kaczynski, I am very familiar with, though.
I loved his work.
Wow, you totally came out in support of terrorism. And moving on.
Yeah. I just liked his writing, that's all.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. I thought his prose was quite compelling.
Nice backpedal. Well done, Tom.
Sam Raimi wants Hilary Swank for Oz. This is a prequel to Wizard of Oz, sort of. It's a fight, though, with Disney Studios. They want Michelle Williams to get the part.
Okay, so how often does this happen when you have a showdown in public specifically? Because normally I assume there's these kinds of pissing matches all the time, but you never see them. But the fact that this is happening in public, is that just an artifact of the internet age, or is there something special about the showdown that they're arguing over who they?
Well, it's just the fact that Sam Raimi constantly goes to battle over his geek fetishes. He wanted Spider-Man to be Jake Gyllenhaal, and he got his way. They wanted somebody else.
Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire. Take two.
Yeah, they're the same guy. You never see them together, do you? Yes, Tobey Maguire. Why did I say Gyllenhaal?
Well played, sir.
Yeah. So apparently this is a thing with Raimi, where I forget names of actors and he fights for people that the studio doesn't want.
Well, and apparently it's worked out well for him in the past. I wonder if taking this battle public, and I don't know that it was an intentional move on either party, but I wonder if this is the kind of thing where you sort of decide to let the public vote on this kind of thing, where it's like you have your argument in the quiet corner of your restaurant, and then finally you shout it loud enough that everyone else is paying attention, and then finally the crowd goes, "What are you talking about? Hilary Swank would be awesome!" And then the whole thing is settled.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think Michelle Williams or Hilary Swank, either one, would be a bad choice. I like them both.
Yeah.
FBI has raided the Los Angeles apartment of a SAG member, a Screen Actors Guild member, the Bureau believes was the first to upload the Oscar-winning movie The King's Speech, as well as many other Oscar-winning movies, The Black Swan, The Fighter, others like that. The guy's name, the alleged pirate, is Wes DeSoto, and he apparently hasn't denied that he did this. I'm trying to find his quote here. He basically said, "I'm nobody in the online file sharing world. This investigation is excessive and a waste of tax dollars."
Again, this is more of the artifacts of the DMCA. One of the biggest problems that the DMCA did is they made it a felony offense to share files. I mean, is this what we want our police doing? Is this I mean, am I the only one really bothered that studios have this much sway that they can get policemen to go away from arresting violent criminals and beat down the door of an actor that nobody's heard of because he leaked, he shared a copy of his screener, allegedly?
Wait, so you don't, I mean, there's a big story about how basically everybody got sent a screener via iTunes. You put in a code, and that code was unique to you, and there was a watermark on the iTunes video. So it would be that everybody should know that this is very easily traced to you, but apparently this guy uploaded the stuff anyway, and even under a handle on the Pirate Bay said, "Oh yeah, SAG now sends out iTunes download codes for screens. I'm a SAG member. I thought I'd share these." And he didn't expect that he would get in trouble for this?
What? That's what the person with the handle said. They suspect him of being that guy. But regardless, even if it is him, is this how we solve things? By kicking in the door with guns drawn? Why are they not just suing him into oblivion? We have recourse for this that doesn't waste the resources of our police department. This is ridiculous.
Spurlane, do you have an opinion on this? Because you work much more closely with the folks who are affected by this. What do you think? Should we have the feds storming in? Do we have Sperling back?
We're it's a shaky connection, it appears. We're trying to figure it out.
You can kick him to audio only because otherwise I'm going to assume his silence implies total agreement with Brian's position, as I always do.
As always.
There we go. Now we got you.
No, I think that it's very interesting that the FBI took so much time to go after a guy who supposedly uploaded a film that has not only won an Academy Award, but is now out on DVD. The reason they did it, of course, is they're trying to make a point. And I think the reason that the FBI gets involved in this is, where do you think the FBI agents and the LAPD officers go after they retire? They all head straight to the MPAA, where they are on these piracy task forces and spend, I guess the latter 5 to 10 years of their career tracking down, digital pirates or movie theft.
I did not know that. That's some stuff from like The Wire right there. That's the inside sauce of like small people looking for their retirement coverage. That's amazing.
Yeah, there's like upwards of 30 different agents that work out of the MPAA building in Encino that are all former FBI and police officers. So when the MPAA wants to get the FBI involved in something, it's not too hard. And the FBI, look, the U.S. Senate and the U.S. Congress takes this very seriously, because it is one of the few industries, the film industry that is, that has a positive trade deficit with every single country that it does business with.
Yes. And I'm sure...
and Brian wants to take jobs away from those retired officers and put us in debt to foreign countries.
I'm on the record. Look, I am very deeply disturbed by government law enforcement involvement in the movie business. This is crap, and it's not. There's no need for it. If their problem is that they are suffering monetary loss, then sue the bastards so bad that there's a financial incentive for people not to do it. But to play cops and robbers with this kind of thing is offensive to me. It is a waste of time and resources.
Well, they may have looked at what the Recording Academy did, or the RIAA, and said, you know what, that whole lawsuit thing didn't work too well for them, so we should probably just get the law enforcement involved. And, in the end, you have somebody barging into some guy's apartment with guns drawn to rip a DVD player out of the wall.
It's ridiculous.
They seized his DVD player?
I'm just saying that.
And they hurt his feelings too. That's where it really hurts, sir.
You, sir, have bad taste in movies, and you're not a very good actor. Get on the floor.
Do you know how they wound up catching him? Maybe you went over this while I was trying to make Skype work, but they watermark all of those screener DVDs that they send out. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was quite a bit of detective work. I used it on Tech News Today as an example of why you need more than just an IP address if you want to catch somebody, right? You don't just say, oh, IP address at that location, guilty. They did a lot of evidentiary work to figure out if this is the guy. But Brian, you leapfrogged over all of that and went right to the heart of the matter, which is, okay, it clearly is illegal, and this guy seems likely to have done it, although that is yet to be proved, and he hasn't actually confessed, although he hasn't denied it either. But is that the issue? Or is the issue, should our laws be such that this happens? Is this the best use of our enforcement? If he's going to be punished, should he not be punished the way Jamie Thomas is, rather than having his house stormed and his stuff seized? I can't say, in all honesty, that I disagree that the laws need to be changed on so many levels, and that's not even the worst of them. We need to get back to focusing on what actually does encourage creativity. I have a long blog post up at subbrilliant.com/blog that I wrote upon this, where I'm like, we need to stop supporting a business model with our laws and get back to supporting creation of art with our laws. Because even if we had no copyright law, there would be art. The reason we have copyright is to foster better art. And the laws we have right now are not fostering better art. I can't say that, if we lose a large part of any media industry, whether it's music, film, or journalism, or anything else, that we aren't going to lose a lot of bad things along with the good things. It's not like every single thing made is 100% quality.
I agree. And with that, I will wear a tube top.
All right. Put it on. Don it up. HBO streaming content comes to Dish Online. That's right. More than 1,800 pieces of HBO and Cinemax programming, including movies, television shows, and other content, now available on the satellite provider's online streaming service. Only Dish subscribers who pay for access to those movie channels will be able to watch the content on Dish Online. Also coming up May 2nd, the HBO iPad and iPhone apps launch. They have an HBO app, but the HBO Go app, which will allow you to watch HBO stuff. Again, you have to be validated as a subscriber to HBO. I think they have all the major cable companies and satellite companies on board now. I know with DirecTV now, I can watch HBO Go and on like Google TV, for instance, or on my computer, and catch up on all the past episodes. And frankly, that's why they don't want Netflix to have this stuff yet, because they want to keep you in their HBO Go corral and make you pay for HBO. Frankly, I'm fine with that. If that's the way they want to play it, just give me a chance to subscribe to it online only. Don't make me have to go through a cable provider.
You know what? Actually, two things. First of all, I don't even mind if you have to subscribe to it, because it's like, we feel like we're subscribing to the cable and that we're getting, but we only want the online stuff. The fact is that we're paying a clubhouse fee to HBO to be in the HBO clubhouse. And whether we use the golf course at the clubhouse or whether we use the gym at the clubhouse, the fact is we're still members and you have free reign to go wherever you want with that. So I don't mind that you're paying full price, and I don't even think that you necessarily need to be able to get just the online component at a cheaper rate. But I will say that no, HBO Go does not cover all of the major cable networks, because I'm Time Warner, and I was so disappointed. I went to HBOGo.com and I says, select your cable provider from the list. And I go down the list and the last one is Other. And I click on Other, and the universal answer for Other is, yeah, sorry, don't have it for you yet.
I could have sworn I saw Time Warner on there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think the analogy, though, of the clubhouse is actually very true. I mean, when you look at what the New York Times is doing, where they say, pay us a subscription and you can read the newspaper online, and pay us even more money, and you can read the newspaper on your iPad. Well, I'd rather just pay one fee and get it everywhere, rather than have to worry about, wait, did I pay the fee for the iPad, or can I watch it on television? So I like that analogy of it being kind of a country club, if you will.
Yeah, that's what I was meaning. But instead, I said clubhouse, which conjures images of the Little Rascals, instead of the country club, which is what I meant to go for.
No girls allowed.
Absolutely.
This is the He-Man Woman Haters Club, Spanky.
So is this a case where it's like they already made the decision to put this content on HBO Go, and it was easy to just add one other line and send it over to Dish?
Yeah, well, you're getting a little more integration, right? You're actually being able to watch it in Dish Online, which with the others, you have to go to HBOGo.com. It's not integrated with DirecTV.com, for instance. So it's a minor thing with the Dish situation, but it's more example of HBO pushing their content online more and more. Hopefully HBO Go becomes an app on connected TVs. Display Search reporting that 123 million connected TVs are going to ship in 2014. Forget 3D. I think this is the killer thing for a new television, is an Ethernet port, so that I don't have to hook up an exterior box if I don't want to. I can get Netflix and Facebook. I don't know if I want Twitter on my television or not, but Skype I would want, Vudu I might want, all of this kind of stuff that I can get through Roku or Boxy. If I can just get it directly on the TV without having to hook anything up, that's ideal.
Well, don't you think Roku is right now beginning to feel a lot like the Flip, where they kind of go, great, we make this box that the television is going to make obsolete in 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I think Roku's play should be to get themselves as the device that's integrated in the television. Like we've got the deals. Make a partnership with us, and have a TV that comes with Roku, so that you can say we've got all the stuff that's available on Roku built into the television. I think that would be the smart play for them.
I could not disagree more. I think televisions are meant to do one thing, and that is display a fantastic image in as high quality as possible. I feel about these TVs exactly how I'd feel if they came with a toaster hot glued to the back of it. Now, granted, it's like, whoa, what's wrong with the toaster being on the back of it? You don't have to use your toaster now. And if you don't have a toaster, it's like, hey, free toaster. But you know what? That's not what TVs are supposed to do. They're supposed to do one thing, and that's show very good quality displays. And I'll tell you, my TV, I got it just last year, and it has Flickr integration and YouTube support or whatever. It's very slow. It's cumbersome. It's the kind of thing that looks good on a piece of paper, but in actuality is clunky, runs slow, and is a pain in the butt. I played with it once, and I never touched it again. If I want to actually watch YouTube videos, I'll use the Apple TV, or if I want to watch Netflix, I'm going to do it on my Xbox. I'm not going to use the built-in interface, and there's no incentive for TVs to put the quality that we expect from these set-top boxes. Also, the refresh cycles for TV is way too long. People only buy a new TV every 7 to 9 years. And think about it. If it's slow from the day you open it out of the box, how idiotically slow is it going to be 8 to 9 years from now when you still are using the exact same TV? I think all of this is media hype. This is 3D for the TV generation part 2. This is how useful. It's going to come with every TV, but nobody wants it. Nobody needs it.
You know what? Now that you say that, I think you're right. A processor is good at one thing, interpreting machine language, and I don't need it built into my computer. It should be separate so that, my refresh rate, if I want to change the processor on my computer, it should be totally different. I don't want it inside my laptop anymore.
What are you saying? What are you saying? Are you trying to turn my own arguments against me? Look, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but TVs, I think, is a different thing. I think all of this is smoke and mirrors, and it is my prediction. Let's put it this way: I'm not telling Samsung that they have to stop putting this feature in there, but I'm saying that nobody's going to use it and nobody's going to care. Like, do you have that in your TV? And I'm talking as somebody who has it in my TV right now, but is so unimpressed with it that I've never used it again.
I think it's going to be the thing that gets mainstream users watching internet content, frankly. I think if it becomes something where people get used to using it, where there's compelling content on there, it'll work. And I think you can do firmware updates over a long period of time. I think game consoles are a good example of that. They have a 10-year life cycle. You buy a game console, you can use it for 10 years. You don't have to replace any of the parts inside. It still plays the games. So, I think you can make these things so that they last 10 years and can deliver content. I think it just hasn't been widespread enough. And you, Brian, have so many other options with an Xbox and other things. I don't even know what other boxes you might have. But I think people who don't go out and buy a lot of other devices may actually sample internet content if it comes built into their television.
Yeah, I don't know. I would hope that would be the case, and certainly I have a vested interest in more people exploring online content, but I don't even use the tuner in my television. I have not used a tuner in a television for a decade now.
And there you make my point. You are not the typical user.
Okay, all right. Well, fair enough. Touche, sir.
But does the typical user use their tuner in their television set? I'd have to say no. They use their set-top cable box or their TiVo or their DVR. I mean, who has used the tuner?
Actually, you're right. They probably all use their set-top cable box these days. I mean,
yeah.
There's a lot of people, though. There's more people than we're probably giving credit that use the tuner with that cable that comes out of the wall and doesn't use a box. But man, cable is against those people, and they're going to drive them out. They're going to make them not use their tuner anymore because they want to sell them digital cable.
Well, isn't that what kind of the whole digital transition did anyway? I mean, most people...
No, that was a big thing we had to fight against. When there was a digital transition, that didn't mean you had to get digital cable. You could keep the cable coming out of your wall. Those two things were not related at all, but the cable companies did use that confusion to trick a lot of people into switching to digital cable.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what. Here's what I think will happen. Even if you're 100% right, and that this is a super awesome development in television technology, and it brings the masses into internet television, 5 years from now, those processors, the very nature, the fact that you're only able to get 720p or whatever instead of 1080p, what'll happen is the cable companies, just like what happened before, cable companies are going to say, by the way, our new box has all the same features except for higher definition and faster processors, and still you're going to end up not using it, just like we don't use our tuners right now.
All right, our next bit is in the wrong segment. That is entirely my fault. This should have been in Film Found, but we should check in on the 2011 NSFW show movie draft because we didn't have any movies out that were in the draft last weekend. This weekend, Fast 5 and Prom coming out. And Brian, you have Fast 5. It is the last of your April domination movies. Justin Robert Young has Prom.
That's
so
right.
far, you've got a total of $126 million in the box office from Source Code, Your Highness, Arthur, and Scream 4.
Yes. Okay. As you know, my strategy was to buy a lot of lottery tickets and hope that one was a surprise hit. To my surprise and consternation, all 4 of my movies so far have severely underperformed expectations, industry expectations. On the Hollywood Stock Exchange, they were all rated to be much higher than they actually came out. So I'm going to say it's all up to Fast 5. If Fast 5 has to be a surprise hit for me to even have a chance to stay in this game. So do me a favor, everyone. I highly recommend that you check out Vin Diesel and The Rock in Fast 5 this weekend.
Sperling, do you catch on what we're doing here? We had a movie draft where we had a limited amount of money to spend to buy the rights to a movie, and then we get points based on how many dollars they rack up at the box office.
Okay, so it's a lot like Hollywood Stock Exchange in that regard.
Yeah, it's a spin on that. I don't have a movie until June 3rd, but I have X-Men First Class. I think Harry Potter is probably going to make as much on its opening weekend as Brian's movies have made all April.
I would not doubt that.
I totally agree. And actually, now keep in mind, I was shocked, and I think that Sarah Lane's going to win the game because she bought, because you guys, because I was out of money, I would have fought her, but you guys let her buy the Harry Potter movie for like $20 or something. Meanwhile, every single Harry Potter movie has made within $10 million of $300 million, like clockwork. So this one's going to it's going to be on the high end. I'm guessing around $310 million. She came out way ahead buying that for $20-something.
Well, she bought it for $30.
Whatever. She should have paid $50.
And you spent $49 on all of your April movies.
Yes,
before
and I did not
Fast
get my
5.
surprise hit that I wanted. So yeah.
Ah, well. These are the ways of things. All right, back to Tube Tops. What are you watching, Brian? Is it Game of Thrones?
What Game of Thrones is that a movie or a TV thing coming out? Is it only the most awesome anticipated event of all of 2011 as far as this guy is concerned? Hell yes, I'm watching Game of Thrones. You're watching it too, right?
Yeah, it's on the Hobo Network. I enjoy it.
HBO, human body odor. I tell you what, man, I could not be happier with Game of Thrones, and I keep talking to people who have not read the books to get their perspective on it. Sperling, have you read the books, or are you watching the TV show?
Well, I don't have HBO and I haven't read the books, so I do know that it's been picked up for a second season, though. So wow. It is successful.
In fact, when we get to the when we talk to the folks by email, there were a lot of emails with some specific concerns specifically to this show and the way we're going to handle it. We'll talk about that in a bit. But I am 100% super excited. I heard you talking earlier about some of the little things they changed. For example, the relationship between Daenerys and Khal Drogo. I'm okay with the changes because it's clear that they are doing some switcheroo on characters in order to show the same amount of development of Daenerys as a character.
Yeah, I actually kind of went off a little bit on the Sword and Laser podcast about this. I'm 50-50 on the character development. I'm 98% enjoying the show, though. They've got the tone right, they've got the world right, and honestly, that's the most important. The pacing, the storytelling, all of that is great. I've got some fanboy nitpicking on the way they're developing Kat, Eddard Stark's wife, and I had some disappointments.
What do you disagree with? Because
I think she's too weepy. I think she's not strong enough. This woman is just not punching me in the face the way I think Kat should. She's been and I don't mean weepy after what happened. No spoilers in this episode. I mean that she just never. She struck me as a little whiny, especially in the first episode.
Well, in the books, they portray her as a little sexier than she is. But I think that given the fact that she's that she's clearly had so many children or whatever, I think they're doing a great job. Isn't it a weird twist of light where it's like one moment she looks hot and the other moment she looks like a grandmother and then she looks hot again? Have you noticed that?
I've only seen her looking like my grandmother.
Oh, sometimes she looks just the right way and she's adorable.
I just always feel like she looks like she's kind of upset. And to me, Kat is like in charge and she's confident. And when she opposes Ned, when she opposed Eddard Stark going to King's Landing, she opposes it with good arguments and strong logic and understanding. And in the TV show, it just seems like she's like, oh no, you shouldn't go. Who cares if you have to go? I don't know. This is really niggling though. I mean, even the character herself doesn't bother me. I still enjoy the character, but it's not fitting exactly the way I imagined the character when I read the book. Frankly, most of the other characters do.
If I can play, this is my only, and this is a very, very minor. And keep in mind, everybody who's listening, you definitely need to watch Game of Thrones. It is fantastic, and it gets 99% of the story right. These are fanboys who are geeking out over stupid details.
Yeah.
But personally, Peter Dinklage is way too handsome.
Yes, I agree. Tyrion Lannister is supposed to be deformed and ugly, and I pictured him with like long, stringy black hair and a big kind of scraggly beard and hunched over, and kind of maybe looking out of the side like this. Not like Peter Dinklage, like, hey, I'm charming and I'm a dwarf. Come on,
right?
And
exactly.
Whore with me.
Exactly. He's like, you're supposed to be a little bit disgusted by him, and they do a great job in the audiobooks. Roy Dotrice, when he reads it, he gives a very characteristic voice to Tyrion that sounds tiny and kind of ugly, and it's totally enchanting. I highly recommend the audiobook if you're not going to watch, if you want more after you watch the TV show. But yeah, that's all I'm doing is watching Game of Thrones and then watching it again and then playing Portal 2.
Yes.
Well, between the poster, the trailer, and what you guys just said, I think I might actually subscribe to HBO after all these years.
Look at that. Honestly, it's worth it.
I totally subscribe to HBO for this show. I actually called Time Warner, and when the lady answered the phone, I said, hey, so I guess Game of Thrones is coming out tonight? And she cut me off going, I know. Like she was so excited.
That's great.
I was also just as excited about the premiere of Doctor Who, where they finally freaking did it right and premiered it at the same time in the UK as the US. No reason for me to go and pirate it, except that they didn't have it on HD because BBC America isn't on HD on DirecTV. But mostly no reason to go pirate it. I really enjoyed the premiere. Did either one of you watch Doctor Who?
My wife watched it, as a matter of fact. I was on the road. I had a show up in New York, but Bonnie watched it back at home, and she was tweeting her fangirl excitement about it. So I think it's a very good thing that finally Doctor Who's getting his due, man. He's no longer your PBS Sunday afternoon fare, and finally they're recognizing that he belongs right at the prime time here in America.
When I was a kid, I tried to watch Doctor Who. With rabbit ear antennas, and it was on some weird channel. This was before really cable and the cable boxes. I would have to hold the rabbit ear antenna on channel 28 in New York City to try and get the Doctor Who show to show up through the fuzz. And so I'm actually quite glad that it's now premiering in tandem or in sync with the show in the UK. You're right, Tom. There's really no reason to pirate it anymore.
Did you watch the premiere?
You know what? I almost didn't say anything because it's on my TiVo.
Okay,
right
okay.
Well,
we will not spoil it for you, but I'll say I've got a few mixed feelings about a couple things in that premiere that I'm skeptical of, and I'm waiting to see how they play out. But mostly the monster, the plot, everything is really good. It's classic Stephen Moffat, and I'm enjoying it. And before we move on, I do want to put in a plug for Stargate Universe. It's finishing up on Sci-Fi. It's canceled. We're not going to see any more of it. And that is so sad because this series, which started a little shaky, really hit its stride this season and is killer going up to the end. So if you know what? I would say you're not going to bring it back by watching it now. You might as well just hold off until the season is done and then go, find it streaming somewhere or get it on iTunes or something. But it's definitely worth a watch. I will recommend it.
What a perverse thing that because it's awesome, it's like don't even start at the end.
Just wait a couple of weeks for it to finish up. I guess you could try to catch up within the next couple of weeks if you get a lot of time.
Ain't going to happen.
Yeah, most people, it's not going to happen. I want to thank our other sponsor, Hover.com, all about making domain name registration service simple. They don't try to sell you a ton of services. They focus on making it easy to register and manage domains and email. That's what they want to help you do. They also have a no-hold policy for customer service. If you call Monday through Fridays, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. When you call, you get a live person. They won't put you on hold. They'll help you through whatever they want. If you want to transfer your domains from another registrar to Hover, you can do that. And in fact, they give you free transfer concierge service as a Twit audience member. That usually is a $25 service where you essentially say, here are my domains. here's my information. You go and transfer it for me. You don't have to do anything. They charge $25 for that normally. You know, it's pretty easy to do, but if you just don't want to bother, now you can do that for free. Just call Hover, give them your username and password. They take it from there. They'll get the authorization codes, deal with all the emails, all of that stuff. It's $10 per domain name for the domain registration, not for the transfer. And they transfer that domain beyond its current registration date for 1 year when you pay that $10. Hover will handle the whole hassle of the transfer for you at no additional cost. So we appreciate Hover. We use them. I just registered peoplefamiliarwiththematter.com at Hover.
No way. Did you really?
Yeah, and then I created a quick blog that does a Google search for the phrase "people familiar with the matter," and then posts up a link to that story.
Is that like insider sources? Maybe I'll register insidersources.com.
Yeah, so if you look, the latest posting is Tom Gagliardi, a frontrunner to buy Dallas Stars, says ESPN, or bids for MySpace expected this week, according to people familiar with the matter.
That is awesome.
Anyway, that's just, you got an idea for a domain name. Try it out. Hover.com. We thank them for their support. Hover.com/frame is where you should go if you want to support this show.
Point out, man, this is our own little piece of the web right here. Head on over to hover.com/frame so they know it's our complaining and griping about internet and movies that's making them the money.
All right, let's move on to Interferon. Interferon. There it is. Jeff Goldblum. So, Lady Gaga and Weird Al Yankovic in a very interesting and ultimately satisfying one-day fight. If you don't know, Weird Al doesn't use the law usually. He has the right to parody. Parody is protected case of content in the United States, but he plays by a different set of rules. He goes to people and he says, look, I want to make fun of your song. I want you on my side. I don't want to go into court. I don't want to fight anything. Will you let me parody your song? And most of the time,
most importantly, he says, I'd also like to give you a cut of the proceeds.
Yeah, I'm going to cut you in on this. That's how that's how he convinces them most of the time. Well, he did this with Lady Gaga's song "Perform This Way," and she said, "Well, let me see it."
No, "Born This Way" is the song. His parody.
I'm sorry, "Born This Way." Right. He said, "Well, okay, I'll record "Perform This Way" and I'll send it to you. Tell me what you think." Because most people just say yes or no off the top, but she's like, I want to hear it first. So he recorded it, and she said no.
Well, no. Oh, yeah. Now keep in mind that the way it went was that he kicked it up. He sent an email, said, "Here's what I plan to do. I'd love to do it. Is it okay?" And then she wrote back, "Well, I'd have to hear it."
Right.
And so he's like, "Well, normally I get permission before I invest all my time and effort in writing a freaking song." So he goes ahead and he writes the entire lyrics for the whole thing, and he sends the lyrics over, and then and what comes back from the manager is, "Oh, no, she has to hear it." And so he's like, "Wait a minute, that's it's her song. She's already heard the song. These are my lyrics. So just picture my lyrics on your song." And again, he's thinking, okay, there's one more hoop. This is the only reason he decided to go for it is because he thought this had the potential to be like the lead single on his new album. And so he's like, fine, I'll jump through your Lady Gaga hoops. And so he actually records the song. He cut short his family vacation to go and record the whole song. He spends a week doing, 18-hour days or whatever to get this thing done, sends it in, and then it comes back, no. The answer is no. And so he decides that he's just like, well, screw it. What can I do? So he writes this fantastically worded blog post. He's class act about the whole thing. He's like, I'm really bummed about how it happened. I'm going to tell you this is what occurred. And he shares all this. He's like, but, so here it is for free. Enjoy. It's here on YouTube, right? And, of course, Lady Gaga, who has made a career out of very successfully using social media, word gets back to her very fast. A ton of negative publicity on the web for Lady Gaga. And the word that comes back instantly, but by the end of the day, this thing rocketed to like 10,000 likes within 5 hours. And the word that comes back is, oh, there was a mix-up. Lady Gaga never saw this. The manager just spoke on her behalf. Sorry for the mistake. You can totally have permission to put it out, which I think was a very classy way for her to handle it.
Although the YouTube video is still up with the beginning saying, I created this for Lady Gaga. And
if you read the notes down below, if you click on the YouTube link, if you open it inside of YouTube, you can see that it actually says update. Lady Gaga has approved the there you go. If you pan it down right there, update. Lady Gaga has approved.
It was actually up in the upper left corner too.
Yeah.
And they probably don't want to change it because, of course, there's over 2 million views on that. You change the video, and all of a sudden you drop back down to 0.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's where that comes from.
2 things. Number one, how amazing is it that in the war of internet geek cred, we now know that Weird Al totally trumps Lady Gaga. We don't care how big a star you are in the real world.
And she really tries to be an internet superstar. I mean, she's always palling around with tech companies and showing up at Facebook and stuff. She's interested in it.
Oh, absolutely. And to be honest, it's a key part of her success to date. But apparently she's got nothing compared to the mad chops of Weird Al and his gang. And another thing, this is something I want to float out to you guys. And I don't know this. This is pure speculation and conjecture on my part. But what if, hypothetically, she really did say no and then saw this mad media backlash? Is this the kind of thing where maybe somebody savvy enough would look and turn to a manager and say, fall on your sword, and get somebody else to take the heat on this guy?
Whoa, Brian. So you're saying that she is such a diva that she wouldn't want to admit her own mistake, and she would make one of her minions take the blame for her? That does not sound like the Stephanie Germanata I know.
Yeah, now that I think about it, that's a crazy idea, and there's no precedent for that kind of action ever. I don't know what I was thinking. I apologize.
That kind of thing never happens in Hollywood. Never.
Yeah, see, take it from an expert, Brian. I mean, that's unthinkable.
I actually have a funny Weird Al story. Personally, Weird Al story, sort of.
Did he try to parody one of your early albums? And
I actually gave him permission, but when I first moved to Los Angeles, and this was in the early 1990s, I was working at the Fox network in their business affairs department, and I was working with someone whose name is Suzanne Krajewski, and I didn't have a dentist. I hadn't seen a dentist in like 5 years. She said, I'll send you to my dentist. He's great. And whenever I send somebody to him, he sends me a basket of cookies, so this will be great. I still go to that dentist. Well, a couple of years ago, I think it was 2005, I'm reading Wired magazine. Weird Al is on the cover, and they start talking about his life today and how he's married to Suzanne Krajewski. And I thought, well, come on. How many Suzanne Krajewskis could there be? It has to be the same one. Well, the next time I go to the dentist, I turn to him and say, do you remember who sent me to you originally? And he looked it up in the chart and he said, yeah, Suzanne Krajewski. And I said, do you know who she's married to? And he kind of, a big grin surfaces on his face, and he kind of winks and he goes, Big Al. And so he's a patient now. So somehow I feel personally connected to Weird Al Yankovic, even though I am in no way, shape, or form connected to him.
Wait, did he say Big Al or Weird Al?
Big Al, like he's...
Oh, so are you sure he meant Weird Al? Because maybe she's married to some guy named Big Al.
That would be a very strange coincidence. Two Suzanne Krajewskis that are married to...
She's actually married to Al Yankovic. Totally different.
Yeah. Different. Big Al Yankovic. You don't want to mess with him.
Yeah.
Turn your lights off. All right, we're running a little long, so we gotta get to feedback. It's time.
Now it's time for feedback with Brian and Tom on Frame. Oh yeah.
On Frame Rate Show 21, you mentioned Netflix toying with the idea of allowing, maybe for a price, more streams at once in your household. How do you explain that I can watch a stream on my PC and my PS3 at the same time? I loaded up Farscape on my PC and Top Gear on my PS3, played both at the same time. Am I breaking the rules / law?
You know what? Actually, this is, I was kind of glad to see this. We got multiples of these. That's why I put them both up there. I actually had the same thing because I was watching, I think, some documentary, and on my kids, on the Xbox, they were watching like some kind of strawberry shortcake thing or something. So I don't know what the current rules are, but a little bit of Googling online, I saw a number of people saying they could get 2 streams at the same time. But I also saw hacks that some people were using to get more than 2, like to get three streams. And I guess like it's a matter of how many devices you have and to what device. Apparently, there are a number of cases of people who stream to different devices under the same account, for example, to an iPad and your Xbox, but then there's somebody else who is trying to stream to their desktop PC, but also use Play on their PC to send to their Xbox, and they weren't able to do that because you can only send one stream per device. So I don't know the specific logistics of it, but that's what my poking around has revealed. Have you ever tried to do that?
I've totally streamed two at the same time, but I haven't paid close enough attention to tell what the conditions are. I do know that it is so-called loosely enforced. It is against the rules per se, but they don't always check and block. And it sounds like they're only blocking in a few situations. So
I would like to say, for the record, that the chat room is howling like, "Why are you bringing this up? Netflix is listening. Stop,
no, Netflix knows this. Netflix has actually said when they've talked about future plans for putting in more limits to streaming and say allowing you to only stream a certain number of hours per month, that they would get stricter in the future. So it's not like they don't know. It's not a mistake. They're totally aware of it.
Right. This one comes from Stephen W. Bedford at the University of Michigan. Brian and Tom and Jason, too, I guess. You guys smell. I mean rock. Anyway, quick question. I've read Game of Thrones and I'm working my way through A Clash of Kings. I don't have HBO, so I'll have to watch later via Netflix, probably after I finish the book series. Will what you guys say about Game of Thrones on frame rate spoil anything in the later books? I was reading an article about George R.R. Martin the other day, and we were talking about a certain character in book 3 being in peril, which I would consider a spoiler on multiple levels, as I now know that character survives until then, thus making any peril prior to then far less perilous. I love the show, but should I make a habit of skipping over your Game of Thrones conversations from now on? Steve. Now, I'm not kidding you, Tom. We got a half dozen of these emails. And I know we play fast and loose with spoilers, and we're not so good about, in fact, take the spoiler alert to yellow. Oh. Spoiler alert. We're not so good. Spoiler alert. We're not so good at remembering to announce spoilers in advance. That's the spoiler. But meanwhile, I will say that since we're so intimately familiar with Game of Thrones, and because you and I have midwifed so many other people's experience through the book, I think we've gotten pretty good at knowing what not to say. Would you say that's right, Tom?
Well, yeah, but that's not even what he's asking. What you guys say about Game of Thrones on frame rate spoil anything in the later books? Well, that's like saying, if I watch the television show, is it going to spoil things about in the later books?
He's saying when you and I are chit-chatting about Game of Thrones, are we going to accidentally drop, like, especially since he turns into a gremlin 5 books from now?
Oh, yeah. No, I think we can be pretty safe about that. I am starting to get spoiler weary. Because so many shows I talk about books or television shows, and people get really upset. For instance, I talked about Game of Thrones on East Meets West. I made a very big spoiler alert. I said over and over, I am going to spoil the first episode now. I am going to talk about it. I'm going to say what I thought about it. So if you don't want to be spoiled, stop listening now. And I don't know if the guy's just a troll and trying to get to me or whatever, but on Twitter, somebody posted, "Thanks for spoiling Game of Thrones on East Meets West, Tom." Poophead.
Oh, that had to be. And that had to be somebody playing along.
At this point, I'm done. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to spoil everything. So you just don't listen to me talk if you don't want to be spoiled. Because I'm going to tell you Soylent Green is made of people right now. Oops, sorry, no spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore.
You're just over casual conversation. You're like, ooh, this is really good tea. Rosebud's a sled. I'm sorry, what? Oh, no. It's my guy's in it. I'm sorry. What I meant to say was the Gibbous Kaiser Soze.
Oh! All right, I won't play that again.
Snape. No, I am not going to go that far, but people are just really picky, and I know some people are just doing it to have fun and be like, "Oh, you spoiled me! Ha ha! I'm going to get you all mad." But I do think that some people out there are really like, "You can never spoil anything. Don't say anything." I'm like, well, then don't listen to a show that's going to discuss these things. If it's a show that talks about television shows, we have to be able to talk about the television show a little bit, or else it's not a show about television shows.
Yeah, now, having said all that, I think it's not going to be difficult for us to try to stick our Game of Thrones conversation to what happened on the most recent episode and not spoil anything.
I think
coming
that is
up.
absolutely true. All right, that's it for this edition of Frame Rate. Sperling, Reich, thank you so much for being on the show. And is that a vacuum, or I thought that was the spoiler alert sound coming in?
No, the sound is going in and out on Skype, but
there we go.
Yes,
it's adjusted.
Can I just say that was awesome? That was like how Hollywood would indicate a breakdown in Skype connection. I've never heard that on Skype, but you sounded like you're trying to warn us about the Death Star approaching on our planet or something. You're like,
the aliens are coming. They're coming up the coast. Run.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Let folks know where they can find Showbiz Sandbox and the other stuff you do online.
They can find it at showbizsandbox.com, spelled exactly as it sounds. We're also on Twitter at showbizsandbox, and on Facebook, the same thing, facebook.com/showbizsandbox. I can be found on Twitter at Sperling is the username to look up. And of course, on iTunes is where you can subscribe to the podcast. And please, everybody, try and all subscribe at once so that we can try and make that, top downloaded podcast thing, because I still don't understand how that works.
is it go time right now? Like it's already up there? Like right at this very minute, everybody watching live should go subscribe to it so we can knock you up to #1?
Yeah, if everybody watching live went and subscribed to it, and so even if you want to unsubscribe 3 days from now, if you subscribe to it all right now, I want to see if it actually raises us into the weird algorithm that Apple has for most popular podcasts.
Done and done.
All right.
You heard the man.
You've got your marching orders. Chat realm. Thanks again, Sperling. Thanks for your persistence. I know we had some internet issues tonight. Thank you, Brian.
Dude, great seeing you, man. Hey, I don't know if I mentioned, but I finally converted my Facebook profile to an actual fan page. So now I can go past the 5,000 limit. I'm still putting all the same status updates as I did before. So head on over to facebook.com/Shwood, SHWOOD, and give me a like. Just say you like me. I like you. Why don't you like me?
We're a happy family. You can also email us framerateshow@gmail.com. Find us online at twit.tv/FR. That's it for this edition of Frame Rate. The guy behind the curtain is the wizard.
Wait a second.